Okay, we're going to do this project. It's based on this book, and the book is called If You Give a Mouse a Cookie, only we're calling it If You Give a Mouse a Crayon. And it's by Laura Joffe Numeroff and illustrated by Felicia Bond. And it's one of my all-time favorite books. I love the character. So we're going to be drawing the mouse in the book and a crayon. We're going to be using, for the art materials, white paper with a pencil and eraser, thick and thin black marker, blue pencils, light and dark, gray pencils, light and dark. We're going to use a color marker of your choice and a dark pencil to match that color so we can do our shading, and a ruler. Now, the object of this project is to do a technique called shading, and it's showing different values of light and dark in a picture. And shading is a way of making a picture appear more realistic and three-dimensional. And also I want to explain what an outline is. An outline is a line that shows or creates the outer edges of a shape or form, also sometimes called the contour. So we're going to start with a white piece of paper. And again, we want to have our mouse kind of centered on the paper. And you're going to use, to start, lightly sketch out the drawing of your mouse. I'm going to go over my pencil lines that I've already created with my marker. I'm going to use a thin black Sharpie marker to create the outline, which I've already explained. And as you can see, he's a relatively good size, about the size of my hand, and the crayon in comparison will be slightly larger to show proportion. Okay, so we're going to start in the center from the top of the paper, and you can move your finger down and make a little guide dot with your paper or your pencil, and then go over it with your marker. And I'm going to kind of make some, lines that show that the mouse has texture, so he's furry. And so you're just going to start from that guide dot and make kind of simple angle lines. And then we're going to start to curve up for the ear on the right side. And you're going to start to take that line going over. It's going to have a slight curve under and go up just a tiny bit more. And then we're going to, at the tip, kind of take your line, and you can make a jagged line to show the texture on the mouse's ear, and with a little bump at the bottom, at the base of the ear. And then we're going to draw the fold inside the ear. So you're going to kind of start right close to the middle of the top of the ear on the inside, and just draw kind of a curve, and then it goes right to the bottom corner of his ear. Okay, that's a good start. So then we're going to maybe add a little hair going up, and you can do a couple little lines that are shooting straight up to show the texture, and that's to create the fur. And I'm going to start to go up at an angle and come to a point. You can make a couple of lines. And you want to have the tip of the ear across from the other ear that you've drawn out. So you can use your finger and just run that right across to see if they're the same height. We don't want to have one ear too big and the other too small. So then we're going to kind of curve out again. And you can make that a kind of a wobbly line. And that kind of comes up, a little curve under, and then you stop. Again, across from where you've stopped with the other ear. And we're going to draw the fold on the inside of the ear. And that's just a nice curve. And it stops close to the bottom of this ear. So we're going to draw 2 small circles for the eyes. And you can see there's a fair amount of space in between the circles. And you're gonna make a small black dot for the pupil of the eye. Okay, and he's got 3 little hairs just above each eye. You're gonna do 3 short lines just above the eye, not touching the eye, but just above. And in between the eyes, you're gonna drop down, and we're gonna start with a soft curved line for the top of the nose. And you're gonna curve under and do the same thing on the other side. Now you wanna do the nostrils, which are 2 small dots on the bottom of the nose with a line that has a little bit of a curve to it, and we're gonna make an oval for his mouth. And while we're at it, we're gonna color in that oval and make it into a dot. There we go. Now let's go underneath the ear that we've drawn on the right side first, and you're gonna go right to where we stopped the ear, and you're gonna make a curve out, and then draw a very short straight line where that curve stopped. And we're gonna go on the other side and do the same thing. Great, he's looking very cute already. So we're gonna make a few dots, tiny dots on his cheek, kind of randomly spaced apart on each side in the lower part of his face. And then we're gonna just draw 3 whiskers. And they're spaced apart. That one has a little wobble to it. That's okay. There we go. And then we're gonna start to create his body. So right at the end of that line where we stopped, where his neck is, you're gonna take a line going straight, kind of with a curve, out at an angle. And we wanna stop because we want to incorporate the crayon. So we wanna be able to have him showing the mouse holding his crayon. Now the paw is just a little bit wider at the end, as you can see, and then his arm tapers and then widens right where the bottom part of his arm is. So we're gonna do the same thing on the other side. Take a short straight line over, and then you're gonna start to take that out at an angle. And we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna just take a line and leave that empty right now so that we can incorporate the details of his paw. And we're gonna kind of curve in a little bit and then curve out. Now, on the right side, I'm going back to the right side, and I'm gonna kind of straighten my line, but as you can see, it's going slightly at a diagonal. Let's do the same on the other side. Now that we've got our mouse wearing overalls, we want to be able to show, like you can see the folds in my shirt. We want to be able to show the folds in the fabric that he's wearing, in this case overalls. Right next to his neck, you're going to draw a short straight line so that we can start to draw the straps of his outfit, and then do the same thing on the other side. All right. And you're going to make just a slight curve up to connect those 2 straight lines. Now I'm going to go over to just a little further over, and you're going to make a line for the rest of his strap, and then curve under, and then complete that line. So now you've got a nice long curved line, like a U shape. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. You make a curve at the bottom, and you're going to take that straight up to the top of his shoulder. And let's not forget, we want to add a couple of buttons. All right, very good. Now let's go back to his paws, and we're going to add little details on the bottom part of his paws. Like if you looked at the bottom of a dog's foot or cat, you would notice the pads on their feet. I'm going to add the pad, which is a little oval, and then some dots. And then we're going to just add some little lines to show the rest of the foot. Now we can show a couple of lines on the other side, not as long as on the left side. So I'll just leave that there. Now what we're going to do in the middle of his overalls, we're going to add a little pocket. So we're going to draw a short curved line, and then you go to the end and then drop that down like you're making a long U, and then take that back up. And to add a little more detail, we're just going to add a little flap here, and you can create little dots with your pen to show the stitching on the fabric. Give it a little more detail. Okay, let's go back over here to the left, and we're going to go right to the outer edge of his strap and take a curved line and take it right to the side of his body. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, right to the outside of the strap, straight line, but then it's going to curve and go right to the side of his body. And then we just want to show the inside part of the overall, so you're going to add a curve just above the end of that curved line that we stopped, and then do the same on the other side. So you want to make sure they start opposite of each other, so they're lined up. All right, let's go back to the left side and kind of show some curves to the fabric of his overalls, and you can see they're curving out just a little bit until we get to the folds of the bottom of the overalls that are folded up. Now what we're going to do is you're going to, at the end of that line, you're going to take a line, and it can have some curves to it, and you want to start to show where the fold of his overalls at the bottom of the legs are. And then we're going to curve up and go to the other side, and then to make it easier, go to the end of the line on the left and then curve over to connect both sides. Now let's show the fold of his pant leg. Kind of looks like the shape of a foot on that side. And we're just gonna add the fold to the other pant leg. Now when you see fold, you see creases, so we're gonna add a couple short lines, a little curve to show where the creases and the folds are on his pants. Very good. Now we're just gonna add his legs, part of his legs and feet. So let's go to the left, and you're gonna take a line at a diagonal, and as you can see, it's wider at the top of his leg, and then we're going to do the heel, and then you're going to make a soft curve up and go to the top, and a soft curve up, and then you can make a little curve at the end, and you can add some little lines for his toes. Let's go to the other side. You see a line going out at diagonal, and this one coming out, so they come closer together. It's wider at the top, kind of coming in together, and then you're gonna do the top of his foot. Let's go to the heel here, curve under, up, and then you're going to make a little curve at the end and draw little lines for his toes. And then the tail is right in the center of the bottom part of his body. And you want to have a nice kind of even double line. Take that right to the foot, or leg, actually. And then come out the other side. So where that line stops, you're going to then go to the other side and continue it on and make a curve at the end. So that connects to both sides, okay? And you don't want to take a line going through the bottom part of his leg. So let's draw out the crayon, and then we'll clean up the mouse and start doing our shading. And I'm going to use a ruler to create a long cylinder. My ruler was here a second ago. Okay, I'll find another one. All right, got another one. All right, so what I want to do is draw, pretty tall crayon. And if you have any crayons at home, you can take one out and look at it. Take the yellow out. And, or whatever color you choose to color it in when we're ready to start coloring. And kind of look at the details on the crayon, the wavy line, and the kind of like border sections on top and bottom, and of course the logo on the side of the crayon. All right, so I'm going to take my ruler, and I'm going to, it's a little tricky since we've already drawn out our mouse, and I want to place it, and you may want to just kind of look at it first where you're going to be placing the crayon. And I want to have it like right across from where the top, where the bottom part of the ear is. I'm going to draw a straight line, and make sure you don't go through the tail. It's probably best to do it in pencil first so that you have your nice straight edge. And then be aware of where your line starts on the other side. And remember, hold your ruler down flat. It's a little tricky over here. And try not to let it move while you're drawing your line, because it can easily do that. Okay, so I'm gonna move my hand up and continue to draw my line. And I'm gonna stop where the other line finishes. And that's what I want to start off with for my crayon. Now it's a cylinder, so it's round. So we're going to make a curved line connecting those two straight lines, and it curves up and over. Excuse me. And then you're going to make a curve, and if that line's not long enough, whoop, just take that down. Better use a ruler. All right, and then the bottom part of the crayon, as you can see, it looks like a little hat. And we want to take a short straight line right underneath and make another curve. And then you can draw a line at an angle. Make a little curve at the bottom and connect it. And there you go. So, excuse me, we're going to add a little bit more detail to where the paper and the crayon actually separate from each other. And you're going to draw part of the logo, not all of it. So we're going to make a curved line close to the side. And what you can do, now on this example I chose to use a yellow crayon, so whatever color you decide to color it in with, and we're going to use a marker and then shade on top of the marker with a slightly darker color of the color you've chosen. And then whatever color you've chosen, you're going to write out the color itself just underneath the logo. Now there's a little bit more detail that we need to add to the crayon before we start coloring. So just below that curve line, you're going to make another curve. And this one has, just below it, it kind of curves up like a wave and comes right to the side of the crayon. And then we're going to drop your line again, and then you're going to curve up, under and up again, and then just below that you're going to make a curved line. So these two sections are going to be colored in solid black, and this will be colored in solid black. Let's drop a little further down and do the same design that we have on our crayon above. And you're going to kind of curve up, under and up again. And the tail's in the way, so you're going to work around the tail, not go through it, but work around it, and then draw a curved line. So now you've got your details. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cap my skinny marker, and you can use a slightly thicker black marker just to color in these sections in solid black. and drop down, curve up. Take your time. Okay, now this part here, we're gonna just do a solid black so you don't see all of the logo, you just see part of it. Drop down and finish in this kind of design that's on the crayon's packaging. And be careful around the tail. There you go. And lastly, with my skinny marker, I'm going to write out yellow. So again, you don't have to use yellow, you can use a different color if you'd like. And I'm just gonna clean this up a little bit because it got a little wobbly. And I'm just going to write out the color's name. There. Okay. Now that we've drawn out the mouse, we are going to cap our marker and clean up any of the pencil lines that you've got existing on the mouse. Clean off your surface. And let me mention that before we start coloring in the mouse, that you want to have a nice, hard, smooth surface to do your coloring in. If it's bumpy, it's not going to, it'll show up the bumps when you start coloring on the surface. So you want it nice and smooth so that your shading will be smooth. Okay, there we go. Now we've got our little sweet mouse here. Oh. There we go. Now, I'm going to start off using a pink. I think I didn't mention that we needed pink, but we will. We'll need a pink pencil for just a couple sections of our mouse. So we're going to add the pink to the pads on his paw. And you're going to color in the nose. And you want to make sure it's nice and even when you're coloring it in. And then we're going to color in the tips of his ears. Now you can see I'm not applying too much pressure on my pink pencil. And I'm just taking my pink along the top, and I'm going to drop it down just a little bit along this side of the ear. Let's go to the other side. And that's all we'll need right now, and you can put your pink colored pencil to the side. Now I've selected light, medium, and darker gray pencils to start coloring in my mouse, and I'm going to be doing the shading on top of the color, and I'll show you how we do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a lighter shade of gray, and I'm going to be going back and forth with these pencils. I'm even going to go inside of the ear. Now you can take this gray pencil, this light gray pencil, and go right over the pink that we've colored in. And as you can see, I'm going back and forth and trying to keep my color even. Because I'm going to go back in there. As you can see right now, it looks pretty flat. It's just one color. but the other darker grays are going to make it look a lot more realistic and three-dimensional. And when you're coloring in, you want to kind of work your color around the eyes, not inside. So I'm basically going to color all of the mouse in this light gray first. Now, in order to achieve different values, it's really about pressure when you're using your pencil and coloring it in. If you ease up on the pressure, the color gets lighter. If you press hard, the color gets darker. I'm kind of just using not a lot of pressure as I color all of this in, and I want to try to make it as even as possible. I don't want it kind of all over the place. And I'm going to go right into the ear and right over it. And when you go over the pink, you'll notice how it definitely fills out that color and it kind of evens it more. Okay. Excuse me. You can, if you want, go over the nose with your gray. I'm not going to go over the oval dot for his mouth because that will change the black. If, in fact, you go over it slightly, all you need to do is use your eraser and clean it up a little bit. Okay, let's do the paws and the arms. And you know, this little mouse doesn't have much to color in on his body, especially since he's wearing his overalls. Let's go back over here. I missed this spot. And I'm going to go over the other side. And you're just coming to that curved line on the side of his overalls, and you're going to drop down and do his legs. And his feet. His tail. And you want to make sure that you're coloring evenly. Actually, you could go right through because it's all gray. His tail, so you don't have to be too careful with that side. And there you go. Okay, so we've got the mouse colored in for now. And I'm going to go to a slightly darker gray and start creating some depth. And if it doesn't look darker, go even darker. It's nice to have a range. So I am coloring right over the lighter gray that I've created. As you can see, it's already starting to pop out, which is what I want. And I'm going to go inside the ear to show some depth. As you can see, I'm coloring back and forth very close to each other with the shading. And I'm going right to the line. And actually, I'm just kind of creating this curve on the inside of his ear using my darker gray pencil. And you may have to kind of switch and kind of play with the colors to make sure that it's the color that you're looking for. Now I'm going to go back to the top of the head. I'm not pressing too firmly with my pencil. I'm going across the top of the head, moving over to the other ear. And I'm going to go right on the inside of his ear. Take your time, be patient, take a deep breath. The results are worth it. Now you can see already that this is starting to pop out, creating this depth with the slightly darker pencil. And if it doesn't show up, just go back over that area with your darker color and add a little bit of pressure to make it pop. Now I'm going to go just above his nose because his nose is sticking out. I'm going to shade kind of angular direction just above, kind of like a triangle. I mean, you don't have to do a triangle, but it looks slightly like a triangle once you shade that section. Oh, and then I forgot, I'm going to grab my black pencil, or marker, sorry, and make a tiny curve for the chin over the pencil. Now I'm going to kind of go right in front of the ear, and I'm going to just shade, take that shadow coming down just slightly on that side. You can do the same thing on the other side. Not too dark. You don't want to see a harsh line. You just want to see the implied shadow. And we're going to go along the side of the head, right around his cheek area, and you can see it's already making a difference. And I'm going to take that right down to the top of the overalls. I'm going to go a little bit underneath the chin. And then go to the other side of his head. The idea with the shadows is not to have a hard edge line, but you want it to kind of flow into the next color. And I'm going to go right atop the overalls, and all of a sudden you can see a big difference on his face. Now, to create a shadow, we're going to add the shadow underneath his arms. And alongside the body, just where the top of the overall on the side of his body is, and go to the other side. I'm going to go alongside of his paw and take that right along the side of the body and move it down to his overalls. Now, if there are any areas that you need to go back over, simply take your lighter gray and you can just kind of go over to even out the color if it looks irregular. You can even go over the darker shadows. It's not going to make a huge difference, but you just kind of clean it up before we start working on the rest of our mouse. Yeah. All right, now let's go down to his legs. And we're gonna go right underneath the overalls. And right on the outside part of his leg. And under, kind of follow the curve of the heel and go right to the bottom of the foot. If it's not dark enough, add the pressure to your pencil, and that'll darken it up. You're gonna go right where the bottom part of his overalls are and where the top of the tail starts. Now, another thing to do is if you don't think that the shadow is slightly dark enough or is dark enough, you can go over some areas with a brown pencil and darken it even more. Go over your darker gray. So you're layering your colors, and you're going to continue along the bottom part of his tail right to the very end. Okay, and then I'm going to go right on the side of his leg, along the heel, and underneath the bottom part of the foot. All right, there you go. That looks pretty good. Like I said, if you wanted to see shadows slightly darker, you could go in with a little bit of a brown and kind of add that brown, and then you can go back over with a darker gray. But I'm just darkening it slightly with the brown, not too heavy with pressure. Go gently where I want it even darker. And that's an option. And you can see what a difference that makes. And he's really popping out. It's looking very good. And if it gets too dark, simply use your eraser to lighten up the color, and then go back over it with the pencils you were using. And really not very many areas other than where the fabric meets the body to create that shadow that's slightly darker. Okay, good. Nice. Okay, now we're going to move on to his overalls. You're going to find kind of a denim color, and you can go back and forth and see what color. Now, before I do that, you could use a color pencil to color in his buttons if you wanted, or a crayon, or even a marker. I'm going to use my yellow marker and color in his buttons. And that yellow marker will be used from my crayon since I've already marked it as being yellow. Okay, so now let's color in his overalls, and we're going to do the same thing. It's actually not super light. It's more like a denim color. And I'm not pressing too hard on my blue, because I'm going to be going over it with my darker blue, or you can even use a purple to create your shadows on the overalls. And just be patient, stay within the lines, go back and forth, gliding your pencil. Make it even, using the same amount of pressure. And take your color going all the way down to the bottom of your overalls. You could even use a blue marker to color in your overalls. And I think it's coming together pretty nicely. Okay, there, we've got our overalls colored in. Now this, I'm going to use actually kind of like a purplish color. And I'm going to start to add the shadows going around, kind of like a purple blue when I look at it, around the pockets, or the pocket, yeah, both pockets, all pockets. And you can see it's starting to pop out a little bit right along this curve for the side of his overalls and around the bottom part of his straps. As you can see now, they're popping out a little bit more. And okay, and then I'm going to start to go around the folds and where the fold and the leg separate here. Go along the bottom part of, follow that curve, the bottom part of the overalls. You may have to add some pressure to the pencil, depending on the brand, I think. Some pencils are a little waxier than others. And right where I drew those small lines to show the creases in the fabric, I'm going to kind of go around those areas. Okay. I'm going to go to the top of the pocket too. Now, if you wanted to just work a little bit more on the overalls, you could find kind of a medium blue and just kind of go over the first color you used. And you can see when you use pencil and another pencil on top of it, how it kind of evens out the color. And the white sections kind of just fill in. It's definitely takes a little bit longer, but so worth it when you see the results. So you can see already I've gone over with kind of this medium blue and the difference between the top and bottom of the overalls. The thing about doing art is patience is really important. I think we're so used to having results so quickly that we just get used to that. But it does teach us to be a little more patient and enjoy the process. And I'm almost done. And clean that up just a little bit. And like I said, if any area gets too dark, simply use your eraser, pull up the color a little bit, and then you can go back over it. Now we're done. All right, almost done. Now I'm going to use my yellow marker and I'm going to color in. Make sure you have something underneath your paper just in case it bleeds through. And I'm going to color all this in. So if you were to use a blue marker, now you're going to go in between those two black designs and kind of fill that section in and then continue on down. Now ideally, you want to make sure that the ink has dried that you use to color in your color name. You don't want it to bleed. Another thing you could do is just color it all in yellow first and then add the color of your crayon on top of it. But I think this was pretty dry since it took some time to color in the mouse. And then you want to find a slightly darker color pencil in the same color family when we do our shadows on the crayon, so it doesn't look flat. Without shadows, it's going to look flat. It's not going to pop out. Okay, I'm done with that. And then I found this slightly darker, kind of mustardy color to just show the shape of the cylinder of the crayon. So I'm kind of just following that on top, and you can see it's slightly darker and just a little bit on the side of my crayon. I'm going to take that down. Don't go into your black, but just stay on top of the color on the left side. Go in between the black. And you also want to take your slightly darker color and go right underneath these curved lines. Okay, and that should make the crayon pop out a little bit more. Lastly, we're just going to add a little bit of a shadow to the bottom of our feet on the mouse. So you're going to use just your regular lead pencil, and you're going to just kind of shade a little bit underneath his foot. And the shadow is always darker right underneath the object, and then kind of just gets lighter as it goes away from the object that you're drawing. And then I'm going to take a little bit of a shadow underneath my crayon. It's slightly darker right underneath the crayon, and then it gets slightly lighter when it goes further away from the shadow. And there you go. So this is If You Give a Mouse a Crayon. Thanks so much, and see you next week. Bye-bye.